I wanted to write from the age of, I would say, roughly 8, almost as soon as I could write. And it's taken me a long time to get to the position that I'm in now. And when young people come up to me at conferences and so on and say, I want to be a writer, my immediate thought is don't. You have to be, sort of very lucky, and a bit of talent, I suppose, helps. But my career didn't really develop until I lived in Italy for 5 years, and I decided I wanted to write about that experience, and that was really when I created the Aurelio Zen character, and when things began to make sense for me. Before that, I wasn't quite sure what I was doing. Well, I started with 2 pastiches. In other words, I was imitating someone else. The first one was a deliberate pastiche of, in other words, a signed pastiche of Conan Doyle, called The Last Sherlock Holmes Story, and that was the first book that got published. And I thought, that's it. I'd written a Sherlock Holmes pastiche. It got published. My mum will be happy, although actually in the event she wasn't. And but it's now all over, because really, frankly, you're going to do, well, I suppose you can do 50 of those if you want, but on the whole, one doesn't want. And so I thought, it was all over. Then I lived in Italy in the early 80s, and I used to go to Florence quite a bit, and discovered that Robert Browning and his wife had been living there for reasons connected with her health, and I wanted to write something about that, and also about Florence in 1850, when it was briefly the capital of Italy. And so that was the second book, which wasn't a signed pastiche in the sense that the style wasn't deliberately based on that of another author, but more a general take on Victorian letter writing, basically, because it's a novel of letters. The text consists of letters, sent by an expatriate living in Florence to a friend of his in America. But that was all right up to a point. But they were both me doing someone else's voice. And then when I was kicked out of the university that I was teaching at in Perugia, there was a power struggle, and I ended up on the losing end of it. I have to say, 2 or 3 other teachers who had 1-year contracts, and I thought basically, those bastards, I can put them in a book. And of course, everyone said, "Oh yes, well, this is what everyone's dream scenario." When you get canned at work, you say, I'll put them in a book and show them up for what they are, But I actually did, and the book was called Rat King, and it was the one that introduced Aurelio Zen. But I really intended it as a one-off, It was my A, revenge on the people there, and B, my sort of one book that I wanted to write about Perugia. Unfortunately, well, actually, very fortunately, it won the Gold Dagger Award from the Crown Writers Association, a notoriously stingy bunch of award givers. And people started saying, well, when's the next Aurelio Zen coming along? And I thought, what, next? And I've been to Sardinia the year before this incident happened at the university, and I thought, well, where can I take him which will be just about as different as possible from Perugia? And Sardinia seemed to be, completely the answer. So, and then that was 2, so then there were 2, and then it was a series, and off you go. I think of Zen as an acquaintance rather than a friend, and as a friend rather than a close friend, if you see what I mean. In other words, he's someone I don't really know an awful lot about, and don't particularly want to, because I think it makes it more interesting for me, and hopefully for the reader, to re-encounter him with every new book. And for example, the new one, Medusa, that was a new encounter. He's as my Italian publisher pointed out, he's suddenly a lot more macho. He's sort of throwing his weight around. And this was not predicted, at all. I thought, how would he react in this situation? And I suppose that's about all I really know about him. He's not one of those crime mystery protagonists that you find everything about in the first book, down to their political views and their girl or boyfriends and their pets and their tasted sandwiches and, you name it. I don't really know anything much about that side of his life at all, but I do have a very good sense of how he would react. And I think that's the key thing. So in other words, it's an adventure for me. It's a voyage of exploration, writing the book. And hopefully some of the excitement of that comes across in the actual text. Well, my initial thought about the series when it became a series, which was, as I said, after the first one, people started saying, "When's the next one coming?" And I thought, I didn't want to write a game about Perugia, which was the setting of the first novel, because I sort of thought I'd rather done it, possibly, even overdone it. But there may be more about Perugia than you want to know in that book. But you didn't want to do that. But then, I thought that the experience of Italy that I had living there was that it was incredibly diverse, even now. I mean, Metternich, Count Metternich, the Austrian foreign minister, described it as a geographical entity, contemptuously, meaning they'll never make it politically. He was wrong about the second part, but I think he's probably right about the first. And so what you've got is incredible richness and incredible diversity, within quite a small space. And I thought, yes, if he goes somewhere else, then different things are going to happen. And also, the point is that he's a double outsider. He's an outsider because he's, a police inspector, which of course always, this never goes down terribly well with the locals. When you come in and sort of show your warrant card. And because they're all up to something, And the other thing is that, of course, he's an outsider in the sense that in a lot of these areas, the customs and the sense of how people do things, and even, quite frankly, even now, the actual language, is different. I mean, there are places where a policeman from, say, Rome, who happens to be from Venice originally, will go and he won't be able to understand, like Sicily, he won't be able to understand what the people are saying, because they have a private language. And so I thought this is full of dramatic possibilities, which intelligently exploited, and I hope that's what I try to do. Could sort of say some interesting things about Italy, but more importantly, would say something interesting about human nature, about how we all cope with all sorts of things. Because my books are not really about the who done it, or even the why done it, or even the what done it. It's not about the years at all. It's about the sort of the whole situation that is exposed when a crime is investigated. It's like lifting a very large rock in the garden and looking at all the stuff that's been living under there. Normally we know that these things are happening, of course, all around, but we don't have pretext for lifting the stone. But a crime gives certain people, like Aurelio Zen, a pretext for lifting the stone, and then you look underneath and you think, oh gosh, and that is, I think, to me, what I find interesting about writing the books, and I would hope for a lot of people would also be the interest of reading them. One of my daughters told me, in that charming way that daughters have, recently said, "Oh, I loved your last book, Dad, but I guess the ending." And I said, that wasn't the point.